Welcome to this lecture on environmental science and environmental studies. We'll start by defining environmental science and environmental studies. The word environment is derived from a French word, environ, which means surroundings. So the environment is everything surrounding us. The environment can also be defined as the external surroundings and conditions which directly or indirectly affect living organisms. So environmental science is the systematic study of our environment and our place in it. Environmental science seeks to understand the functioning of the natural world, including biology, chemistry, geology, mathematics, and so on, in addition to coming up with practical answers for making human civilization sustainable, given Earth's finite resources. Environmental studies, on the other hand, broadens this to include political, economic, and social aspects of the environment, including sustainability. By systematically studying the environment, including physical, chemical, and biological factors, and the interactions between humans and the environment, we are able to understand the importance of natural functioning ecosystems, how to use these natural resources more efficiently, and live in a more sustainable way. So why does the environment matter? Why does it matter that we live in a more sustainable way? The justification for why we should live in a sustainable way is because the Earth is a closed system. Some people have thought of this concept by thinking of Earth as a spaceship. This is called Spaceship Earth. Because Earth is a closed system, materials do not enter or leave it. Only energy can enter or leave this system. Therefore, resources are limited, and damage that occurs in this system stays in the system. And having a healthy system that's undamaged is important because having a healthy functioning ecosystem provides its occupants with ecosystem services. These are benefits provided to humans or any organism that lives within an ecosystem by the environment, and they include things like food, clean water, clean air, wood to build a house out of or to burn for fuel, pollination, all sorts of things. Now, the ways that humans have interacted with the environment has changed dramatically through time, so let's look at some of the big picture changes. Early on in human history, we were all hunter-gatherers. We harvested biotic resources and abiotic resources from the environment. The population was much lower than it is today, and so we didn't affect the environment in the same way that we do, but we still had a big effect on certain aspects of the environment. For example, in North America, a combination of rapid climate change and overhunting by hunter-gatherers contributed to the disappearance of large mammal species. The next big change in the interaction between humans and the environment happened with the agricultural revolution around 12,000 years ago. People transitioned from a hunter-gathering lifestyle to one where they stayed in one spot and affected that spot much more dramatically than they ever had in the past. Subsequent technological breakthroughs increased the productivity of croplands and the effect that humans had on the environment. It also allowed the human population to grow, and with a bigger population, we harvested more resources and affected the environment more greatly. During the Industrial Revolution, increases in technology led to new manufacturing practices. The human population greatly increased, as did the standard of living for people in many nations, which required more natural resources per person. The Industrial Revolution was also highly dependent on fossil fuels, which depleted these resources and created pollution. Resource consumption and allocation is a common theme throughout environmental science and environmental studies. You can think of anything as a resource. Remember that resources are finite and often scarce, so how resources are used can impact the planet and its inhabitants. There are consequences and opportunity costs associated with every choice. If a resource is non-renewable, it will not be there for future generations. Examples of resources are things like oil, food, soil, clean water, clean air, and we can also think of things like solitude as resources. So let's think through a resource consumption and allocation example. So let's say that we have that rainforest ecosystem that's shown in the top picture. We have to decide what to do with it. We could create a large-scale farm. The pros for this would be that it would create a lot of money, whereas the cons are that it destroys a natural ecosystem that has its own ecosystem services. It degrades the soil for future use. Cows produce a lot of greenhouse gases, and there's less trees to consume the greenhouse gases that are produced from all the equipment that is used to create the farm and that are produced by the cows. We could just harvest the trees and sell them off as lumber. The The pros for that are that it creates a lot of money, whereas the cons are that it destroys a natural ecosystem, and again, there's less trees to consume the greenhouse gases. Finally, a small subsistence farming operation could be set up. The pros for this would be that someone's family could be fed, and it maintains a healthy ecosystem. It's a fairly small farm, and it's not going to degrade the soil in a great way, and it's not going to impact the surrounding ecosystem much. The cons are that it's not profitable. There are a lot of things to factor into making a decision like this, including cultural factors. You have to also think about the upward mobility and industrialization of the nations to which these ecosystems belong. And you also have to factor in maintaining a way of life. So there's a lot of different things to consider, not just money and not just greenhouse gases whenever we think about these things. So let's look at some of the environmental problems today that people are dealing with. A big one is overpopulation. Following the Industrial Revolution, our population really started to take off exponentially, and that means that we're using a lot more resources from the environment. Certain places, too, are really overcrowded, and people's standard of living is very, very low. And eventually, we will hit a limit, the carrying capacity of the Earth, and we won't be able to provide food or water for people, for how many people exist. Another really big problem that we're dealing with is resource depletion. People tend to see the environment just for the resources that it can provide us, and don't see the value in it existing as a healthy functioning ecosystem. And so we use up water, minerals, wood, as though they are just resources to be used. Pollution is another really big issue. We've contaminated a lot of waters. A lot of places have very big issues with air pollution, and there's trash and garbage throughout the ocean, on beaches, there's landfills. So pollution is another really big problem. And as we use resources and destroy habitats, we also see a really big loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity consists of all the species on the planet, and due to human habitat destruction and hunting, we are losing species at an alarming rate. Finally, the last environmental problem that I'll mention in this lecture is climate change, and this has a lot of different facets to it, but ultimately it's caused by human production of greenhouse gases, which trap additional radiation from the sun, so it further heats the earth. So this has a lot of different facets to things that it affects, such as sea level rise. Organisms have to change their habitat in order to maintain their optimal temperature, increased fires, increased storm severity, various other things like that. And we'll talk about that much more in various other lectures. But there are also a lot of environmental success stories. So one is the ozone recovery. So there's an ozone layer in the stratosphere, and it's really important because it protects us from UV radiation. But human-produced coolants created a hole in the Earth's ozone layer, but we recognized it, and we phased out these coolants after passing the Montreal Protocol in 1987, and the hole is getting smaller, and the ozone layer is recovering. We've also had a lot of species rebound from the brink of extinction. This has been achieved through things like habitat preservation, captive breeding programs, education, and halting of hunting and harvesting that was going on. We're also starting to develop a lot of renewable energy sources that don't pollute. And these are really important, and they're taking off. I'm sure you've seen solar panels on houses or fields of them. I'm sure you've seen also wind farms. And so these are generating energy from things that don't pollute the atmosphere, and they are renewable resources, whereas fossil fuels are non-renewable. And there's many more environmental success stories too, and there will be in the years to come. And that's why it's great that you are here taking this class, because you'll be poised to study the environment and how humans interact with it, learn about and come up with additional solutions for sustainable living, and educate your fellow humans. Thank you.